When police found her personal diary, one sentence was enough to change the entire case. "I want to know what it feels like to kill a person." It wasn't written out of anger, not out of revenge, not even hatred. It felt like pure curiosity. And maybe that's the most terrifying part of this story, because some people have reasons to cause harm, but others just want to experience the feeling. October 2004. The small town of St. Martin's, Missouri. A quiet place, empty streets, neighborhoods where everyone knew each other. And right in the middle of that ordinary life, darkness was quietly taking shape. The night everything began, a little girl named Elizabeth Olten left her house to play with friends for just a few minutes. Just a few minutes. But she never came back. At first, no one panicked. Everyone thought she'd gotten lost, maybe gone to a friend's house. But as time passed, the air grew heavier. Families were calling out for their children. Police lights lit up the streets. Volunteers entered the surrounding woods. And through all of that, one person was watching everything. Calm, silent, without anyone even suspecting her. Because she was just a teenage girl. Alyssa Bustamante, 15 years old, Elizabeth's neighbor. A girl who, at first glance, seemed completely normal. But behind that calm face, something was collapsing. Alyssa had been struggling with severe mental health issues for a long time. Depression, self-harm, dark thoughts, scars from cutting were visible on her body. She had talked many times about feeling empty, and it seemed like every day she was drifting further from the world around her. Her mother was addicted and in prison. Her father was absent. Her grandmother tried to keep everything under control, but Alyssa was no longer controllable. And that diary was the only place Alyssa wrote her truth. She had started at 13. At first, ordinary entries. Then, gradually, darker. She wrote about feeling empty, about no one understanding her, about wanting to feel something real. And then, that sentence, "I want to know what it feels like to kill a person." That day, Alyssa lured Elizabeth into the woods under the pretense of playing. Elizabeth trusted her. Why wouldn't she? They were neighbors. But when Elizabeth alone, she lured her deep into the woods, then ended her life. You didn't come this far to stop here. Subscribe and go deeper with Obscura Mind. Days after Elizabeth disappeared, police noticed Alyssa's strange behavior. And when investigators found the diary, everything changed. In the interrogation room, she was unusually calm. She didn't seem shocked, not upset. She answered every question with composure, as if the event that had plunged the entire town into fear had no effect on her whatsoever. Minutes passed, and Alyssa kept going with her lies until the investigator told her, "We found your diary, and even though you tried to cross out what you wrote, we were able to read what was underneath." That's when Alyssa lost control of her words and her lies. Until she decided to tell the truth herself. She had dug the hole in advance. She had formally planned this crime. Then, with complete calm, she washed the knife and put it back in its place, and afterward, with pleasure, confessed everything in her diary. 2008. Alyssa was 19. Her hair was neat. She sat quietly. Sometimes she cried. But the prosecutor opened the diary and read it aloud. The courtroom went silent. Sentence: life in prison, later reduced to 23 years through a plea agreement. Alyssa said she was sorry, said she had changed. But Elizabeth Olten is never coming back. Psychologists later spoke about Alyssa's life: a difficult childhood, parents consumed by addiction, a sense of abandonment, severe depression. But the truth is that thousands of people suffer without ever harming others. And that's what makes this case complicated. Maybe the most terrifying thing about the human mind is this: that if it's left alone in its own darkness for too long, it slowly loses the line between thinking and doing. We all carry both light and darkness within us, but what shapes our lives are the choices we make every day. Some people let the darkness consume them entirely, and others, even in the darkest moments of their lives, still choose the light. darkness always has a root, even when that root justifies nothing. Alyssa's life was difficult. Parents consumed by addiction, a sense of abandonment, severe depression, self-harm from a young age. But I want us to stop here for a moment, not to justify what Alyssa did, but to understand something we often overlook. Trauma isn't a wound that stays on the surface. Trauma goes inward, into the way you think, into the way you feel, into the way you see the world. When a child learns from the very beginning that the world isn't a safe place, when they learn that people leave, when they learn that love means pain, that child shuts something down to survive, a part of themselves. Psychologists call it dissociation, the mind disconnecting from pain to protect itself. But when that disconnection goes deep enough, a person doesn't just separate from pain. They separate from empathy, from connection, from that inner voice that says, "This is wrong." And that's exactly what was behind Alyssa's words. Not evil, not being a monster, but a mind so deeply wounded that it could no longer feel another person's pain. But here's where a more important question arises. Because thousands of people carry trauma. Thousands grew up with difficult childhoods. Thousands have suffered, been abandoned, been broken. And most of them never hurt anyone. So what is it? What makes the difference? Research shows that most people who survive trauma share one thing in common. One person. Just one person who, at some point in their life, saw them. A teacher, a neighbor, a friend, an adult who said, "I see you." That's it. Not expensive therapy, not a perfect life, just one person who made that child feel real. Alyssa never had that person. And this is where we have to be honest with ourselves. Darkness isn't innate. No one is born with darkness. Darkness is built from neglect, from abandonment, from systems that look at children but don't truly see them, from societies that wait for a person to break and only then ask why. And light? Light isn't innate either. Light is a choice. But choosing light when you've lived your entire life in darkness isn't a simple thing. It's an act of courage. Every person who grew up with a hard childhood, with trauma, with pain, and still chose not to harm, still chose to give love, still chose to keep going, that person is winning a battle every single day that no one ever sees. Maybe the most important question this case raises is, as a society, as people living alongside each other, how long do we wait for a child to break? How many times do we whiff past the silences, past wounds visible on the body, past children who are quiet, not because they're okay, but because they've learned that no one listens? This story has two victims, one of Elizabeth, whose life was taken, and one is Alyssa, whose life was quietly going dark from the inside long before that day. Both of them deserve to be seen. Neither of them was. And maybe the only lesson this case offers is some darknesses can be stopped. Not with prison, not with judgment, but with something simpler, much earlier. Seeing. Darkness always has a root, and light is always a choice. And after finding balance between light and darkness, after choosing light, you arrive at a freedom in life where you thank yourself 1,000 times for the choice you made. Reality is never the full story. Obscura.